So I want to know, what is the future of procurement in Ghana in the next 5 years?
Okay, anyway, thank you very much for this question. The future of procurement in Ghana, I think it looks bright, though a lot of people probably would disagree with me, because the procurement has been disabused. Why? Because a lot of things have happened in the field of procurement. But as I said, procurement has to be seen as a developmental tool. Why am I saying this? We should move away from the element of hardcore procurement and the misconception around procurement and the corruption tag on procurement. And as a country, we should see it as a developmental tool. We're doing what we call the industrialization, and I'm happy to always talk about the fact that Ghana is moving to the industrialization, or has moved into the industrialization mode. But that industrialization cannot be successful when it's detached from procurement. So that procurement has to have an inextricable link to industrialization. So somebody who sits at Wale Wale, for instance, and has a factory, and that factory probably is a small factory producing juice, that person has to get a market for the juice that is producing. It's industrializing. But the government, being the biggest spender, is not looking at this aspect, but it's okay, I'm building factories. So if you want to build a factory there, who is going to buy that? It is the government supposed to buy. Government policy on automobile, government policy on one district, one factory. All these things are good, but I'm saying that it has to be linked to procurement, so that when government is spending, we look at how we can spend on those things. So the ministries who are buying cars and spending, we have to look at the type of cars they are buying. Okay, so that we move away from our traditional vehicles that we are using and say, okay, now that we have the assembly plant here, why don't we encourage or have a law which would propel them to buy those vehicles? How many institutions or entities are using Kantanka, for instance? Okay, it's manufactured here, so that should be a policy that will help them to do that. Now, in the next 5 years, okay, procurement one has to, as a country, we should have what we call the national procurement strategy. So all these things I'm talking about that linking procurement to development, it has to be in a strategy and in a framework where, as a country, we know that this is how much we are spending. This is how much we want to spend on our industries or our local companies. Okay, instead of everything putting it out there as international competitive bidding. And I ask question: how many adverts have you seen in the international papers coming from the UKs and the US looking for international companies to come and work in the UK or China? You know, it hasn't happened. But Ghana, we are saying that there's a law, and when you exceed a certain threshold, it has to be internationally competitive. You understand? And I think that we have to look at it and have a national procurement strategy that will drive this. And the national procurement strategy, that's going to propel the growth. Because if you don't have it, which is linking to the industrialization, linking to the supply development agenda, it's not going to work. I've spoken extensively on EPROC. The next 5 years, PPA should continue rolling out the EPROC, because that is the order of the day. We cannot do procurement without automating it, because the advantages are enormous. And you agree with me that every digitization, every technology that enhances service delivery, the advantages are a lot. As soon as we take off the human intervention or interface from it, and it's automated, it saves a lot. There should be also a strategy on what you call the local content. Okay, why don't we say that? We are building up industries that would take up about 70-80% of our spend. Okay, you go to the mining companies. Yes, we have a local content, but the sad thing is that this local content that we are implementing is focusing only on the development of the individuals. It has to focus more on the development of the companies. So if you give a contract to a Ghanaian, you have to make sure that this item that is supplying, some of them are coming from the local. So you can't award a contract to the company and they go and import the same thing to bring it and then supply. So what is the use for the local content? So once we have that law, we have that framework, we also have to encourage and motivate and capacitate our local companies so that as soon as we give them the contract, they know that they have to get it from a local. Why don't we have set up a hub for even some of the mining items that we are using, so that we produce them locally here? Okay, so this is some of the things that I want to see in the future, that procurement is linked to all these in industries and developmental agenda as well. Another thing that I think we have to also move in is our standardization of things that we used, even in both the public sector and in the private sector. One thing I've seen, and prior to COVID, you know that Ghana was spending so much on travel, especially as a nation. Okay, this travel ticketing, why don't we have a global negotiation with the airlines that we use and say, okay, when you are traveling to US business class, economy or first class, this is an agreed rate for the airlines. Okay, instead of every entity going for its own quotations and getting its own prices. Unfortunately, somebody gets the business class ticket, probably 15,000 Ghana. Somebody gets it at 25,000 Ghana. Of course, because of the timing that they take, they issue the ticket. But in all these things, if there's an agreement, there's a negotiation, and most of the companies have done it. Go to Standard Chartered Bank, has done it. Go to EcoBank, they've done. I mean, most of the companies I've worked with before, we've done all these things. So as a country that we have a bigger purchasing power, why can't we do some of these things? Why should we have to buy vehicles every 4 years? Let's move into leasing. That as soon as we have a new management, we lease instead of buying. So that when you lease, you think about OPEX instead of CAPEX. They'll put the books, the items in books and depreciation instead of using it and paying. And that is what is even happening outside most of the country. When you go there, instead of the young guys even procuring vehicles, use their money to procure, they go and lease. So you lease a month £400. Is it not better? Yes, instead of going to buy this about £20,000 using your own money, you go and lease. So these are things that we have to be thinking about as a nation or as a company. So as a company, SME, which is growing or which is coming up, you're thinking about procurement. Because if you don't think about procurement, and one thing I haven't also mentioned is that, you know, in every organization, there are three elements of our operation. You have the costs, we have the revenue, and we have the profit. Now, the cost is procurement. So marketing or whatever revenue will come, but if we are not able to manage it properly through effective procurement system, we are not going to declare profit. Okay. So sometimes when we say the private sector is doing well, okay, because they are able to manage their costs. And they manage their costs through effective and prudent procurement systems. Okay, but as a nation, we also have to learn. We don't declare profit. We have to ensure that there's a good service and a public good. But of course, if we don't look at our costs, the revenue we generate will not be able to meet our costs. And that is what is happening. And we must move away from this thing by using the power of procurement.
Thank you for the explanation for the 5 years future for procurement in Ghana. Before we continue, I want to say that Source Management Services is the sponsor for today's show. We have been talking about procurement in Ghana, so by issues of EPROC and the future of procurement in the next 5 years in the public sector. Now you are transitioning to the private sector. So, having spoken about the future of procurement in the public sector, what then is the future of procurement in the private sector in the next 5 years?
Okay, I don't think we have a clear distinction of how procurement is going to go for the two sectors. But you know, the private sector, especially most of the multinationals, had already embraced the EPROC system. So what happened is that they had implemented some of these systems already. Some haven't implemented. So any company which hasn't implemented, I think it is time to look at how they can automate the procurement processes. And as I said, if you automate that processes, straight away, you save between 20 to 30% of your spend. And that is what will drive the growth of the private sector. So the private sector has to come on board, even as we try to go through this process. We have to accelerate that automation, that P2P processes, okay? And when we are able to do that, unfortunately, some of the private sector companies don't understand that value of automation, and especially procurement. They think that we have to go and collect just 3 quotations and evaluate. No, it goes beyond that, okay? The other thing that we have to look at some of the initiatives that will bring value. And I'm talking about initiative like print solution for instance. We have a lot of stationery that are locked up in stores. Why do you have to have store at this point in time when you can do what you call a vendor health stock or vendor management stock? Now the vendor health stock is just a simple agreement that, okay, I'm giving you framework agreement for about a year. Keep this stock for me. Anytime I need, I'll come for it. The cost of holding the stock is transferred to the supplier. Okay, and these are the things that private sector would have to look at it necessary to be able to manage their costs. Another thing is what we call the risk management. Okay, and the risk management, I think most of the private sector companies are embracing the risk management philosophy, and the procurement plays a very key role. We should be able to know exactly what we are, the people that we are dealing with. So we have the tiers, the supplier tiers. So do you know where your supplier is even getting the items from? No. Probably your supplier is using what we call child labor to produce things for you. And in terms of ethical procurement, these issues come in. So as a private sector, you have to know your supplier. The same way when you go to some of these financial institutions, you say know your customer. So if you have to know your customer, why don't you know your supplier? And you know your supplier's supplier, and then supplier's supplier. And you agree with me that in the UK issue of Tesco, where the supplier used what you call the child labor to produce, it became a huge issue, and Tesco was found a huge amount of money. So as a private sector, these are the things that we look at, because our reputation is key, and I would advise that we have to look at our risk management in terms of procurement. One of the things that I also want to bring across is even one-man risk. Okay, we tend to deal with company that is managed by only one person, and when that person is not there, we are in trouble. Even at this COVID time, we need to have what we call multi-supplier strategy, so that if one-man company, one-man business supply a critical item, okay, and that company is no more, how do we sell through? How do you serve our customers? So these are things that we expect the procurement to do. And in the next 5 years, all these things have to change. And it can change by all of us embracing what we call the automation of procurement processes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. You mentioned something that in the previous episodes in my chat with Ifeanyi Ojo, I raised it up with the supply mapping. That is knowing your supply the tier 1, tier 3. For me, I feel that down here in Ghana, you're not really doing much because we don't know our supplier. You only know the person you're dealing with in the interim. But beyond that particular supply, we don't know where the things are coming from and how the thing that they are producing is being sourced. Yeah. So when we get a system where we can, like proper visibility, where you can know how the entire chain is being run, then you know that we are sourcing ethically. In the end, you want to save the economy, you save the company, and also preserve the environment. And very key. Yes. Thank you for that elaborate explanation. And finally, move to my last question. I want to give us a small piece on how have we corporately and nationally been able to deal with contractual issues in Ghana.
Lim, thank you very much. Yeah. I think it's also one of the topics that is dear to my heart. Yeah. Contract management. Okay. And what's a contract management? As soon as we award a contract, then the management administration comes in. So the contract management is where we consciously look at the terms and conditions in the contract, ensures that there's execution and a proper close out. So as a country, we award a contract and we go and sleep. As a procurement professionals, we award the contracts and we think that our job is done. So I gave a speech on outsource and so what. So as soon as that outsourcing comes in, as soon as the contract is awarded, we think that it is the duty of the supplier to deliver. Fine, the contract has to deliver, but you have to necessarily manage the process of delivery. If you don't manage the process of delivery, for instance, if you had paid an advance and the supplier is not able to deliver, what happened? You end up in court. But of course, you could have avoided that process by consciously and systematically putting some things in place. So there should be a monitoring mechanism, there should be a KPI, there should be a regular meeting, there should be, a framework that will help you to all the time monitor the performance. And most of the contract we sign, also we don't tie the payment into deliverables. So we just award the contract, and that is all. What are the payment terms? So we make sure that in managing the contract, there's a deliverables, there's a payment terms. So that as soon as that deliverable is met, they will go ahead and pay. As a country, I say we have been very, very weak in managing contract, because all the contracts that have been executed, either the contract have not been completed properly, there's a cost overrun, there's a shoddy work, poor quality, time lapses, so many things, okay? And that is the reason why, as a country, we have to sit down and see how do we properly manage our contract. I mean, it will interest you to know that we have thousands of projects aligned, they're not completed. And so far as the project is not completed, you understand the inflation will kick in. You understand the price of item. I awarded a contract for construction of a head office in 2019, thereabout. What was the dollar rate at that time compared to now? You understand it? So there has been some kind of price variation. Okay, but if that 2019 we've been able to execute it, I mean by 2020 we are done, there will not be any cost overrun. Okay, so as a country we should sit down and look at how we manage our contract from end to end, and that is it.
Thanks for the explanation of contract management. Actually, we will actually come and pick the issues on their own and dissect the matters within. So thanks for being on the show. Today comes to the end of our podcast. It's been exciting being with Mr. Simon Annan. He has given us so much insight in procurement, looking through the evolution of procurement in Ghana here and the future of procurement. I believe that knowing what has happened over time, we're supposed to man up as professionals and begin to create a profession where people will begin to accept us for who we are and the value we bring to the table. There will not be a sideline or tactical profession, but be part of the board and to drive changes in our companies. So today, this has been a wonderful time with Simon Annan, and I look forward to meeting once again to dissect issues of contract management and eProc. Thank you, and I also admonish you to subscribe, like, and share my videos. The name is the Procurement Podcast with Enim Ado. Follow me on all podcast platforms, and I promise to bring the best content. Thank you, and see you. Bye-bye.